Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. I know it's been a while since I've uploaded to the channel, but I figured with Season 8 right around the corner, I would make a video on something that I see asked about quite a bit, and I thought that, maybe I would help shed some light on this subject. I'll show you how I do my build and where I get my numbers, and also show you a very helpful site, which we are on, to where you'll be able to go look for things in the future. So the topic in question is Empower, and specifically to this video, the Firestaff. So even though a lot of people will know the very simplistic part of Empower, they'll know that Empower is, a damage modifier added at the end of everything, after attributes, after base damage, Empower comes at the end, and that is also countered by Weaken. Both of them are at a 50% cap. But what people don't know is what exactly are types of Empower, actually. You would think that it would be pretty straightforward, the wording would be in the game, but it's not. There's something very simple, like if we look down here at the armor, Void Harnessing just saying plus 2% void damage. What does that even mean? I don't know, but we're going to find out in this one. I do actually know what it means, but for the sake of that part of the intro, So a couple examples of confusion. These are the easiest ones for me to find, and a couple of them were also brought to my attention. I wanted to show this passive here because it showed a very easy table to understand, and then I'll show you the ability that was confusing. So this one's called Clear Casting. This is a passive on the Firestaff that reads, if not taking damage from an attack in the last 3 seconds, gain Empower. Well, it's after not taking damage. Sorry, I misread that. But you gain Empower for, you gain 5% Empower. Now you can see down here that it shows Empower. The effect categories buff Empower. Right, so it says it's in that category. So if you scroll on down here, this is the thing that was giving someone confusion in my chat one day. It was this on the hatchet, where it's called Accumulated Power. After 3 successful light attacks or aimed throws against the same target, gain Empower, okay, granting a 20% base damage increase for 3 seconds or until the next attack. Okay, now that's confusing. We just used Empower and base damage in the same category, but the effect down here is an Empower, right? So you see it's a buff Empower. So this was part of the confusion, that it said Empower and granting base damage. So this is something to pay attention to, and this is why I do want to recommend a site like this, New World Buddy. You just type New World Buddy into Google and you will find it, so that you can look these things up. I mean, there's every single thing is here, right? You can see what gives Empower and all that stuff, different types of Empowers. Another example that is easy to confuse is this. So the easy example is Empowering Meteor Shower. Okay, Empowering Meteor Shower. That's pretty straightforward. That should be Empower. And sure enough, when you scroll down here, effect category, buff Empower. So yes, Empowering Meteor Shower is in fact an Empower. However, under the same title, Empowering Fireball, this is not Empower. As you see down here, it is base damage. It just takes the name as Empowering Meteor Shower, but it's a base damage modifier. Now there's a few of those in here, right? Some of these are weapon perks. These are just Rune Glass, so you don't have to go that far. But some of these are base damage, some of them are Empower, and you really do want to look this up on your own for any of these. This video would be an hour long if I went over every single one and talked about it. So let's get to my build. So how do I hit Empower cap? So I do have a couple of tabs up at the top that will talk about where I get some of my damage and what is possible as well. So right here at the top, these are my always active Empowers. These are ones that I'm always going to have, or for a majority of the time will always have. So the first one is 5x Rune Glass. Rune Glass, as you can see right here, if you hover over this, shows under the Empower thing. Now, Rune Glass is one of those things that is confusing. If you look down here, I gave the example with harnessing, and we will come back to that in a second. But all it says here is your void attacks deal plus 2% damage. Again, what the hell does that mean? But it is an empower, as you saw in the table, so this is another 10%. Now I have here 3 to 4x harnessing, which is 6 to 8% empower. This is another thing if you check right here. Harnessing is right there. So why do I have 3 to 4? Because I currently am using 3 on this set, whereas my 4th would be if I didn't have the sandworm boots. I don't have to talk about the sandworm boots. You know how this goes. You know they're amazing. So I'm willing to drop a harnessing for that and pick up an enchanted ward, or I guess an Ellie aversion if you like Ellie aversion. Then we have the Firestaff passives, which is 5 to 10%. What is the 5 to 10%? So most, if not all, Firestaffs will take Clear Mind. This is just 5% in power as long as you have high mana. The other one that not every single Firestaff takes is Clear Casting. This is when you, after not taking a hit for 3 seconds, you gain in power. This is the one we read earlier. Now, if you play aggressive, if you play a role in war or hell, even 3v3 arenas possibly, if you play an aggressive Firestaff build, Burnout, you could even use as an example, you could debate not taking this because you're going to get hit. In a war, I do get hit a decent amount. Now, to be fair, I also try to position myself where I won't get hit and will have this passive available. However, there is always the chance you will get hit and it will take this away. So some people don't take it. I do, because I try to play a more caster style out of range. So that's where it's 5 to 10%. It depends which one you do. And then there's the Honing Stone, which is another 7. So if you take the 10, the 6, the 5, and the 7, you get the 28%. But if you take the 10, the 8, the 10, and the 7, you get the 35%. So you have anywhere from 28% to 35%, depending how you do your gear and what buffs you pop in the way of Honing Stone and how you spec your Firestaff. You will always have a flat 28% or 35% base damage. Now below it are some of the conditionals that are active but won't always be there, and that's Rune of Helios. This is the ultimate on the Firestaff right here. Now this is active for 7 seconds. It's giving you 20% in power, but it has a 30-second cooldown, which means it is down for 23 seconds and falls in this category. Meteor Shower is another one. Meteor Shower is up as much as you have the cooldown. Same thing, 20% in power, fantastic. And then Ellie Band, of course, this is another thing. This is on your ring right here. But this does have a 4-second downtime. That's a low downtime, but it still qualifies for this category. Now I say 4 to 12 because the way that I've set up my Firestaff, we have fire damage from the Firestaff, we have void because we are split, and we also technically have ice should we ever light attack with deep freeze, which gives us anywhere it gives us anywhere from the 24% to 52% empower based off of what is available. Now I have 24 here, right? That would just either include Rune of Helios plus Ellie Band or Meteor Shower plus Ellie Band, like either way you do it. But then the max is 52% when you have every single one activating at the same time, and you could have anything in between. So I know I put this in a weird spot down at the bottom, the grand total. The grand total is basically taking the total of the always active and the conditionals, putting them together, and this is what you end up with. The 28% plus the 24% lands you at a 52% empower cap. So even if you take the bare minimum, the 10, the 6, the 5, the 7, 28, and even if you only have Rune of Helios or only Meteor Shower plus 1 stack of Ellie Band, right? You take these two numbers, you still hit empower cap easily. Boom, done. But if you do the maximum amount, the 10, the 8, the 10, the 7, and you have Rune of Helios, and you have Meteor Shower, and you have all 3 stacks of Ellie Band, you can have all the way up to 87% empower. Now I know you're going to tell me that empower cap is 50%, but remember, there is weaken in the game. Now this will apply mainly to war, but having 87% empower is not a bad thing either. There will always be a flail on point. The flail will be outputting so much weaken across that point that some of this empower will disappear. You have 37% weaken that you can eat before it starts nuking your damage. Now we do have some less used sources here. None of these I currently have on my build, but these are other options. They're just less used and or uncommon and or just options, but why use it? So one of those examples would be Shirking Empower. This is an example of where you can get Empower from your amulet. But this is kind of like a why. Why would you bother? Because most Firestaffs, if not all, don't use this. This is more of a melee perk, but it is an option. We do have Tether and Oblivion. I'll group these together. This is if you're running Life Taker as a secondary. You don't run both. You typically run one or the other, but you don't see too many Firestaff Life Takers. And when you do, they're only running one, either Oblivion or Tether. But still, this is uncommon. And for people to be utilizing this, they have to get the value of Tether or Oblivion. And most people will opt for a base damage increasing secondary rather than Life Taker. Leadership, you may get this, you may not get this across every game mode other than a 1v1 scenario. You either will or you won't have it. So that's why I don't include it in anything, because you can't count on having it. Keenly Empowered is in the same bucket as Shirking Empower, as why bother? Keenly Empowered takes the same spot as Penetrating the Empowered. If we go over here to the weapons and we click on this and we type in Keenly, right, to look at Keenly Empowered. Keenly Empowered is up for 5 seconds, but on a 10-second cooldown, meaning that there is a 5-second downtime, whereas you look at Penetrating the Empowered, this gives you amped crit hits with 10% armor pen and reduce the duration of empowers on a player by 7%. That has a 1-second cooldown, but the armor pen does not. So why would you take the thing that has a cooldown in the spot of something that doesn't have a cooldown? And also, there's so many other things you could put in the place of Keenly Empowered. Like, no, you would never want to put that on a Firestaff right now. Another option is Empowering Toast. This would be for people that would be using Endless Thirst that has Empowering Toast on it. Or if you do want that on your earring, it is an option. It's not one that I choose. I prefer either Fortifying Toast or Healthy Toast. It depends on how I'm feeling, depends on the build, depends how I'm speccing my tree, depends how mana hungry my Firestaff build is. So none of these are in the grand total at the bottom. I said the grand total down here should have been, this is an awkward spot. This should have been under this total up here, but these were other options. Now, let's look at something else real quick. I wanted to mention this is base damage. What is the difference? And I'll show you some popular examples that Firestaffs use. So this top part of the math was done for me. Well, this isn't really the math. This was just picking the numbers. I edited it ever so slightly, but a player, Duretti, helped me out with this. He typed it up in this order, so it was easy to see. I guess we could have put light load out above 25 int, but these are all base damage. He checked it, right? 25 int, light load, 50 int, 200 int, 300 int, right? All of this is a base damage increase. Then we have things like Strike a Match. This is the Pillar of Fire passive that gives more base damage across the board, but it's 5 to 20. Then you have Pyromania, you have Alacrity's Punishment. Invig, this really should have said 1 to 10, but we put the maximum there. Desperate Empower, and that's the Worm Helmet, and I'll come back to that one. And then Deep Freeze. Now also down here we do have the crit, right? We do have the critical ones, which is just you critting, and then Prophet of a Fire God. So at the bottom down here, what we added up is you have 77% of just the Firestaff, nothing else impacting it whatsoever. Then you could get up to 78 to 87% base damage with 1 to 10 Invig stacks. It depends what target you're hitting. You could also have 82 to 97 per stack of Strike the Match. Then you could have 89 for the Worm Helmet. That's what the Desperate Empowers. These are all being added onto the 77, by the way, just your base Firestaff. And then you have Alacrity's Punishment. This is if a player has haste. Now, you can have some of these together, and you could have all of them together. So down here at the bottom, we have under perfect conditions. That means you meet all of these conditions up here, right? You can have 134% base damage, and if you crit, you get 189% as well. Now, in this build that I have up here, I don't have too many of those. I don't have perfect conditions. This is the Firestaff tree that I run. Some of those base damage and empowers I will show you here. This is a base damage. This is a base damage, but this is an empower, this is an empower, and this is an empower. So that's where some of my damage is coming from in the tree. The Ice Gauntlet is just there as utility. However, I mentioned Deep Freeze. We will come back to that. So what empower do I have on my armor? I have Rune Glass and then Harnessing. I have Rune Glass and then Empowering Meteor Shower, as I pointed out earlier. I have Rune Glass, I have Harnessing, I have Rune Glass, I have Harnessing. And then I have another Rune Glass right here. No Harnessing because Worm Boots, Keen Speed, way too good to give up. We just have a standard amulet. We have our Elemental Band giving me more Empower. Now on my earring, this one has Fortifying Toast. You very easily could do Healthy Toast. I literally swap back and forth between the two depending on what I'm feeling and how mana hungry I wish to build. You could build your Firestaff a lot more greedy and start taking away mana passives and start taking the other damage ones over here and just chug mana pots on cooldown. And then for that, you would want Healthy Toast. Another form of base damage increase is Alacritus Punishment. I didn't factor in penetrating the Empower with the Armor Pen. This would be another form of damage increase. This is not Empower. This would be base damage, if anything. But because it's armor, this number changes drastically depending on who you're fighting, because you could have the lightest of light armor and then the heaviest of heavy armor. What fortified do they have? Who knows? You'll never know. You know, you probably have hit a player and be like, you need to redo your gems, or you hit a sword and shield and you're like, all right, that's a waste of time. So, and then you have Chilling End, which gives the additional 15% damage to the chilled enemies. And also, just to clarify, what does frozen, rooted, or chilled mean? Rooted is obvious, but what's frozen and chilled? Basically, anyone that gets affected by Ice Storm, Unending Thaw, or Ice Shower. And so this is where I'm getting my Empower. This is where I am getting my damage. And this is also my build as well, if you wanted to take a look at it. And that's basically where my damage is coming from. You know, you can always look up here as well. I will say it gets confusing once you look at this, because this shows you every stack of Elemental Band, which we won't be getting. But yeah, I will have a link to this in the description if you would like to see this build, if you would like to copy this build. And I know Season 8 is coming out. I know there will be patch notes. Most of these will not be affected. Maybe a handful of them would, but as I showed you these tables over here, if you wish to screenshot these, it is very possible to hit extremely high base damage, especially with meeting every condition. And then even with Empower, I showed you ways to hit up to 87% Empower. So even if one of these get completely removed, you would still be able to hit 52% Empower, as I showed you doing the bare absolute minimum. You'd still be able to hit Empower cap. So I will have this there. This is my Fire Ice build. I hope you guys enjoyed. I stream every single day on Twitch, twitch.tv/andv with 3 V's. You know, hope to see you there. And yeah, I'll try to be more active on YouTube. I will make more build guides if you guys are curious about anything you do see on stream, or if there is a build guide you would like me to talk about. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.